Our next presenter, we're going to welcome James Rojas, an innovative urban planner, community activist, and artist. He founded Place It, a pioneering practice that blends model building and art to enhance urban planning and community engagement. And I can say, without engaging in any hyperbole, that James is a renowned public engagement expert, having facilitated over 1,500 workshops and created more than 400 interactive models across the US, Mexico, Canada, Europe, and South America. His impactful work has been featured in major publications like the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times, and it focuses on inclusive community planning, especially for underserved and immigrant population. James is also co-author of Dream, Play, Build, Hands-on Community Engagement for Enduring Spaces and Places, published by the Island Press. So with that, James, unmute your microphone and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And just some background, I'm a Chicano from East LA. So I have a very different perspective than but I am from Houston. We're kind of old school. We've been here for generations. So my work's really thinking about how do we engage people in planning through their senses. I've worked with refugees all over the country. I've worked with every demographic, and it's really breaking down barriers. But just a little bit of background. Next slide. So how I think about it is that most of our planning is very transactional because of how we're founded by the British. But as Spaniards, we come from a different, as Latinos, we come from a different kind of culture and background. Where the Spanish were about building cities, where the British were about business and kind of making everything kind of transactional. So you have more port cities in the British colonies than you did in the Latin colonies, and that really impacted the way we think about cities. Next slide. So in the U.S., our planning is about highest and best use. It's always business. When it comes to relationships or connections to land or people, it's never important to us. So we don't talk about that. Next slide. But as Latinos, we have this whole different kind of background where we're a lot like me and myself. I'm 48% indigenous, Spanish and Black. So I have a very mixed blood, and so we have a very different background as far as where we come from. And then what happens is that when the Spanish came, they came to the New World and colonized us. There's a book called Law of the Indies, which said, this is how you colonize a new world. This is how you build a settlement. And it was all about relationship building. They kept everything kind of tight, and they didn't want the colonists to trade with anybody else but themselves. But that kind of spatial arrangements and kind of psychology has really impacted how Latinos see their communities today. We see them as relationships. So how do we change the planning process in the U.S.? So it's more about connections and relationships and less about just transactional, uses. Next slide. So yeah, for example, this is a street in LA where the woman's going to the bus stop and walking the sidewalk. It's really horrible, crappy, awful, don't want to be there. The next slide, the next picture is the street in San Francisco, where the shop owner in the Mission District, where the shop owner may tie up a tile on the floor, and you really see this connection to the space based on this whole intervention by the shop owner. So you connect to the line. That's how I kind of see Latinos in the U.S. how we see our environments as connections and relationships, not just transaction. So how do we change the planning process of all that? Yeah, so this is a typical planning meeting that we see in the U.S. Right? People just sit around. But I'm having good examples of what they do. Typical meetings. You have food and you have people talking, but that's just not the way the world works. That's a very talk-based society, and it works for some people, it works for lawyers, but not for everybody. So when I worked at Metro in LA, I was working on the rail line going to the east side, and it was a Latino neighborhood, and we would have meetings with 40. We would have meetings with 40 Latinos in the room, but they would not say anything. They would just nod their head. But I knew they had ideas. I knew they had feelings and emotions, but they wouldn't say them. They started working with artists at the same time and started thinking, well, how can we be like an artist or bring other ways of talking into the world? So next slide. This is like a typical meeting in the U.S. where community meetings in the U.S. where somebody, where people just talk, and you have some people talk about, they talk that they take over the meetings and then nobody else talks. But this is just the way it's been run, and so you're not going to get Latinos to talk to me like this because that guy is intimidating, and most people hate public speaking because it goes back to our days when we lived in the wilds, and if something stared at us like an animal and wanted to eat us, so we hate it. But this guy doesn't care. He's going to eat you first. But this kind of really screws. It kind of really shapes the outcome of the meetings, where people get pissed off because they don't want to go because this guy is going to be just taking over. So it's really changing it. So next slide. So as Latinos, I make a meeting that's a celebration. It's a celebration of our communities, our people, our connections. We need to celebrate our history, our stories, and that's what plan should be about because when you're happy and you're engaged, you create utopia. If you're pissed off and angry, you're going to create dystopia. So it's important for us to really think about how do we create utopia in positive places. Next slide. Yeah, so the whole idea that we have people use their hands because of the psychology about getting people the psychology about having people use their hands and their senses rather than just language. Because language is your brain and survival, but talking is about using your hands is about your body, about your emotions, about your senses. Next slide. Yeah. So what happens when you use your hands, you explore relationships with objects and your emotions and feelings. Because when you don't, as kids, we're all about our bodies and emotion, but then we learn to talk, it becomes survival mode. I want $100, I want all this stuff. So when you ask people what they want it means, they'll just say I want more parking, a bigger house, more money, and I hate my neighbors. But when you have them use their hands, it's a whole different story because now their hands are expressing their bodies and their senses and memories. So they'll be building a lot more, shade or how their body fills in these spaces, which is really important because as planners, we might get the language right, we'll get the feeling wrong. So most people, most people will. Oh, we're having thunder in LA. Wow. Anyway, so most people in will make that judgment. If it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to go there. It feels good, so but we never really engage people in that question. How does the place feel? So yeah, that's why we use objects. Next slide. Yeah. So what happened? This captures the intangible that people have in their head. This is a group of Latina women working at a senior center in Port Chester, Connecticut, building their future for their families. They turned on the canciones, they were happy just flying away. But this is the way to get them engaged. Next. Yes, the objects help people articulate the emotion in place that they have a hard time, to place with words, because the built environment is very hard to explain or articulate how it feels. This helps Latinos really help. Next. Yeah, so what happens with us, we have everybody build their favorite child memory because what they having to build that stuff, it's a great icebreaker. It breaks down all the barriers and it honors people's history since from Mexico or and you want to tell your story. You want everybody to hear that story, and plus you want to hear my story too and our other story. So it's a good way to get people to kind of connect and create the empathy that Abraham was talking about. So, but plus when people build that memory, that story, that is a physical place. That is a place now they can articulate that they want because the memory has a material culture to it. It helps people understand the importance of planning. Because most Latinos don't care about planning, but when you have them build their memory, you tell us about this life and your life and your memory. Now they understand why it's important to be part engaged in the planning process. Next slide. Yeah, so people share their memories, and this kind of builds trust and builds empathy. And I would tell people that this memory is your personal DNA for city planning. You take that memory with you because of with every space you enter in your adult world, that memory goes with you, and that's how you get the city from that memory. So we need to really talk about it and honor that memory and respect it as part of the planning process to make this your plan. Next. Yeah, so after that, people collaborate because now people are they have they share their memories, have empathy, and all they're ready to build together, and they tell people there's no right wrong answer. And this is what really bothers me that in the U.S. We do a lot of surveys and ask people what they want, and what you want, but never what can we create together. By doing this, you're honoring everybody's ideas in one place and you create together. And now people feel they're all part of it. You could be a professional planner, professional engineer, an immigrant from China, an immigrant from Mexico, and you just build together. You can all collaborate and share your ideas and really understand how powerful that is. Next. So yeah, people share their teams, people share solutions, and they learn about how their ideas impact each other and how strong they're stronger together. Next. That's what, for example, for like, what does safe streets feel like for women? Next. Yeah, so it's collaboration, you build your ideal communities. Next. So that's also, you want to create self-determination. This is a workshop I did in Phoenix where people had disabilities, and the city built a facility for them, and next door, they were able to play the light rail line stop. They had them build their ideal station based on their disability, and they were so excited that they lobbied the city for 5 years to build their own station. Next. Now they have a station that they lobbied for and they built based on their disability. So they saw this as a healing for them. And this is what you really want to tap into people's memories, needs, and aspirations, so they can lead the planning process. Not the city, it's you and it's the community. So now people here have access to the station, and half the ideas from the workshop are in the station. They wanted low platform. They wanted a proper platform for 2 wheelchairs. So it's really great now. Next, and because it's all just low cost stuff, you could do it in a parking lot in Tijuana. You can make it family friendly. You can go wherever you want to go. You can do it at refugee camps, wherever you want to take it. Next. Yeah, and for Latinos, this people love it. We do workshops with Latinos all the time, and people come back for more because they want to hear the stories of their neighbors. Mm-hmm. Because they want to build a social cohesion and really kind of articulate their needs. Next. Yeah, so that's our contact information, and that's my book called Dream Play Build. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, James. That was fantastic. I've been to some of James' Place It events. I wouldn't call them a presentation. I would call it a happening, if you will, and watched how people really everybody's uptight at the beginning, especially when he begins talking about art pieces and all, like, what am I going to be doing art pieces? I'm not a kindergartner, even that kind of a feeling, or some people are inhibited. And then, he begins a process where you go and choose your stuff, something to create a childhood memory out of it. And you begin doing your little childhood memory. And pretty soon everybody's pretty deep into it. I mean, everyone. Professional planners, people from the community. It's quite an experience to see this in action. And the process is incredible how in the end you get very serious, actionable, the kind of information out of which you can build a plan of any kind. And so I've been really, really impressed with your work, James. I think it's fantastic. And I should say, if you take James' website, he has a lot of material there, and there are some videos of him in action where you can see, how he works and get a little bit more into it.